I used to think distance could save a man. Put enough miles between yourself and the city's clamor, its horns, its arguments, its endless parade of other people's emergencies, and you might finally hear your own heartbeat again. That was the promise my wife and I chased when we left the suburbs of Charlotte for a forgotten corner of the North Carolina foothills. 5 acres of pine and creek, no gate, no committee, no one to tell us what shade of beige our mailbox should be. We named the place Stillwater, though the realtor laughed and said the county had never bothered. Names, he told us, were for neighborhoods with dues. My name is Henry Caldwell, 52 years old, a maintenance supervisor at the paper mill, hands that still remember how to swing a hammer the way my daddy taught me. The truck in the driveway is a 1978 Chevy long bed, rust blooming along the fenders like forgotten bruises. I bought it with my first honest paycheck, and it has hauled everything that ever mattered. Lumber for the treehouse I built my son, the hospital bassinet the night he was born, the casket the day we buried my father. It is not pretty. It is mine. My wife, Ruth, found the listing on a rainy Tuesday. She stood in the realtor's office in her nurse's scrubs, hair still twisted up from a 12-hour shift, and said, "That one. The one no one else wants." Ruth is 48, soft-spoken, the kind of woman who can silence a room just by entering it. People assume the quiet is shyness. They are wrong. We moved in late October. The pines dropped their needles like slow gold coins, and the creek behind the house sang itself to sleep every night. Our dog, Boone, a shepherd mix we rescued from the shelter, quit pacing the perimeter of rooms that no longer existed. For the first time in years I woke without the neighbor's television bleeding through the walls. I believed we had outrun the world. Then we met Victoria Langford. She arrived on a Sunday morning, walking up the gravel like she had a deed to it. White sneakers, navy blazer, hair the color of polished pewter. She smiled the way politicians do on campaign flyers, wide, practiced, and absolutely empty. "Morning," she said. Victoria Langford, president of the Willow Ridge Estates Homeowners Association. "I like to welcome new residents personally." "We're not in Willow Ridge," I pointed out. Our mailbox sat 50 yards beyond their stone entrance, outside the painted line on the county map. Victoria's smile didn't waver. "We consider the greater corridor part of our aesthetic umbrella. Unity keeps property values healthy." She produced a brochure thick as a church hymnal. Inside, identical lawns, identical lamps, identical lives. Ruth came out drying her hands on a dish towel. "We're happy to wave when we pass," she said. "But we're not joining anything that measures grass height with a ruler." Victoria's eyes flicked to the truck, to the dent in the door, to the primer patch on the hood. "Standards matter," she said. "Eyesores travel." Then she left, heels clicking gravel like a metronome, counting down to something unpleasant. The first letter came 3 days later. No stamp, no return address, just cream-colored stationery slipped through the mailbox slot. "The vehicle in your driveway fails to meet community aesthetic guidelines. Please garage or remove within 10 days. I laughed, crumpled it, used it to start the fireplace. Ruth watched the paper curl and blacken. "They're measuring how much fight we have," she said. I measured back. I spent a Saturday washing the truck by hand, waxing the hood until it reflected the sky, parking it dead center in the driveway like a flag. The second letter was typed, angry indentations where the keys struck too hard. "Multiple residents have complained." I looked at Ruth. "We've spoken to exactly one resident. They don't need truth," she said. "They need a story you'll step into." The third letter was 3 words: remove or escalate. That night, a white SUV idled at the end of our road for 20 minutes, headlights off, engine running. Boone stood at the window, hackles raised. Ruth closed the curtains one panel at a time, the way you close windows before a hurricane. Then came the morning the chainsaw started. I was flipping eggs when the scream of blades cut through the pines. Ruth reached the window first. 3 men in orange vests were already halfway through a 200-year-old oak on our side of the survey stakes. I started for the door. Ruth caught my arm. "Let me." She walked out barefoot, phone in one hand, calm as Sunday. The foreman killed the saw when he saw her coming. He was built like a refrigerator with legs. "Work order and boundary verification," Ruth said. He laughed, wiped sawdust from his beard. "HOA beautification mandate. Take it up with the board." Ruth began recording. This is private property. You are trespassing. The foreman stepped closer, looming. Lady, you're making this harder than. Ruth never raised her voice. She simply documented. Faces, license plate, the fresh-cut bleeding sap. Within 30 seconds, the crew packed up and left. By noon, the county had issued a cease and desist and a fine that made Victoria's smile crack in places porcelain never mends. I thought that was the end. It was only intermission. They came for my job next. Monday morning, my supervisor, Dale, closed his office door and slid a printout across the desk. Subject line, hostile resident, Henry Caldwell. Attached was Ruth's video, but edited. No request for paperwork, no refusal, just the tree already falling and me nowhere in sight. The email claimed I had threatened contractors with violence. Dale looked sick. HR wants a statement, he said. Sign it, keep your job. Don't, and they start a file. I drove home with the windows down so the wind could scream for me. Ruth was chopping onions. She took one look and set the knife down. They're teaching you what surrender feels like, she said. That week she moved through the house like a chess player 3 moves ahead. New motion lights. Cameras angled to catch plates, not faces. She started running at dawn, returning by back trails. I asked where she learned to think in perimeters. She said, I pay attention. I let it go. Some questions you're not ready for the answers to. The afternoon they came for the truck, the light was perfect, golden, slanted, the kind that makes photographers weep. I was oiling an axe handle on the porch. Boone slept belly up in the sun. Ruth was out on her loop. I heard the Tahoe before I saw it, tires spitting gravel like teeth. 3 men piled out. Dark polo shirts with embroidered badges, Willow Ridge Security. The leader had a jaw you could crack walnuts on. The youngest had twitchy hands and a pistol riding his hip like a dare. They blocked the road just as Ruth rounded the bend, ponytail swinging, earbuds in. The leader raised a hand. Ma'am, step aside. We're impounding a vehicle. I was already moving. You're on private land. Leave. Ruth slowed, removed one earbud. Her breathing stayed even. The young one reached for his gun, half draw, half theater. That was the mistake. Tom did that rubber band trick. I saw Ruth's eyes track the hand, the wrist, the elbow. She stepped inside the arc, redirected the draw, used the kid's momentum to plant him face down in the dirt. The gun skidded across gravel. The leader lunged. Ruth pivoted, caught his arm, dropped him to a knee. The third man froze, hands up, suddenly aware the script had changed. 5 seconds, maybe 6. Ruth zip-tied wrists with ties she produced from a pocket I didn't know she carried. She retrieved the pistol, cleared the chamber, set it on the hood of their Tahoe. Then she flipped open a slim leather wallet. The badge caught the sun like a warning. Special Agent Ruth Caldwell, FBI retired. You just assaulted a federal officer on private property. The leader's mouth opened, closed. Somewhere down the road, a neighbor's phone was already recording. Sirens answered before anyone spoke again. Sheriff's deputies arrived to find 3 men prone, 1 pistol secured, 1 HOA president watching from the tree line like a general whose army just vanished. Victoria's face went the color of skim milk. The deputies took statements. Ruth spoke in calm paragraphs. I stood there holding Boone's collar, feeling the world tilt. When the cruisers left, the road was empty except for dust settling back into the ruts. Inside, Ruth washed her hands at the sink. I watched the water run pink from a scrape on her knuckle. You were never just a trauma nurse, I said. She dried her hands. I was a lot of things before I was your wife. Why keep it buried? Because I wanted mornings with coffee and dog hair on the couch. I wanted you to see Ruth, not the file. I took her hand. The scrape was already clotting. I see all of you now. The fallout was slow and thorough. The 3 security men took pleas. Victoria resigned before the emergency vote could remove her. The HOA dissolved under the weight of lawsuits and shame. Residents who once looked through us now nodded when they passed. Some left pies on the porch with notes that said simply, sorry. One evening months later, Ruth and I sat on the back steps watching fireflies blink on like tiny lanterns. Boone snored between us. Think they'll try again? I asked. Different uniforms, maybe. Same fear of people who won't kneel. I looked at the truck, still parked front and center, dents and all. Worth it. She leaned her head on my shoulder. Every splinter. The pines whispered overhead. The creek kept its old song. We had not found peace. We had claimed it, defended it, paid for it in sleepless nights, and one perfectly aimed takedown on a gravel road in the golden light. What about you? Drop a comment and tell me. When someone tries to take what's yours, where do you draw the line? Walk away, call a lawyer, meet force with force? Have you ever had to stand your ground against a bully with a clipboard or a badge they didn't earn? Lay it out. No filter. The comment section is your porch. Speak your truth.